Right, welcome. It's the top of the hour. It's time to get started. Good day to you. Thank you for joining us. Today's Go Global webinar, our series continues, and it's the Michigan Online Global Program, Website Localization, and Online Marketing. Thank you for joining us wherever you may be across the great state of Michigan, whether you're up there in Petoskey or Traverse City, all the way to Grand Rapids, where Anne is presenting and joining us today, and over in Kalamazoo and Lansing, where Natalie and I are presenting today, and Flint, Ann Arbor, and the Detroit region. So wherever you are in the state, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us. I would also say a hello to the many of you who will be listening to this webinar on demand at a later date and time. So that can be when you want, as this webinar is recorded to help Michigan companies who want to listen and learn at a future date. So wherever you are and whatever date or time it is, you're welcome. My name is John Worthington. I am the CEO here at IBT Online, and I'm your host today. I have the huge pleasure of introducing our Go Global webinar series. And today we're in Michigan, and it's all about Michigan, and it's about the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, colloquially known as the MEDC. The MEDC International Team, and the many wonderful programs that they have, which are all about, and I quote, to increase the number of small business exporters and to increase the value of those exports for those who currently trade overseas. So we're here to help, and we're passionate about our Go Global webinar series. It's all about knowledge and understanding in this fast-moving, ever-changing, and online and international world. There's a lot to learn and a lot to keep up to date with. And this webinar is a great example. The MEDC have great programs to help Michigan companies, and one of them is the Online Global Website Localization Program. That has delivered export success over the past 5 years for more than 50 Michigan companies. So successful, the program has been renewed, and it is being extended. And today we're excited and pleased to launch the Michigan Exporters' new Michigan Online Global social media program. Just 2 words before we get started. A little housekeeping so you know what to expect from this webinar, this online global webinar. Do know that this webinar is one of a series, and it's all about helping companies grow their sales, their brands, and their businesses globally. It is the Go Global webinar series. It's over 3 years old now, so we have a rich catalog of back recorded webinars available to you at www.ibt.onl/resources. And also there's a layout of webinars to come. This webinar will be approximately 45 minutes. A brief introduction by myself, then I'm going to hand over to Susanna and my colleagues. There will be 2 polls today, so please be ready, attentive with your mice. I'll be calling you to action. There will be questions. So you see on the box which says questions, please click on that. And while we're there, don't hesitate, submit your questions. There's also a chat box. Please use it. And at the end of this webinar, there will be a brief survey. We'll be seeking your opinion and feedback. And finally, do know that we're recording this, and we will be sending you a copy, including the slide deck, on Friday. So let's get back to the main theme. Let's get back to the action. Let's get back to Michigan Online Global Program, Website Localization, and Online Marketing. Now, I'm proud today to be joined by my 3 co-presenters, and I'd like to introduce in the middle of the screen, Natalie. Natalie has been a member of the MEDC International Trade Team since 2014, and she currently serves as the director of the program and formerly held the position of International Trade Operations Manager. Natalie is responsible for developing and implementing the state's international strategy for the promotion of Michigan products and services to markets worldwide via their export and trade programs. And before joining the MEDC, Natalie was an economic developer up in Saginaw Future. Natalie has a bachelor's in business administration from Saginaw Valley State and has spent time in Taiwan, China, and India. Natalie knows Michigan. Natalie knows economic development and the international business world. Next, on the right of your screen, it's my pleasure to introduce Anne, owner and president of Bullman Products. Bullman Products, Inc. is a 100-year-old manufacturer of rolled material dispensers for industrial and retail packaging, as well as the food industry, and based over, as I said, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The company and Anne have a wonderful story. Bullman Products was purchased by Jack Kirkwood in 1982, keeping the well-known name of Bullman Products intact, and Jack continued to focus on the company's niche market of rolled paper dispensers while maintaining the company's long-standing history of quality, workmanship, creativity, and service. Jack's son, Jim Kirkwood, was planning to take over the business when he suddenly and tragically died in December 2008. Jim's widow, Anne, joined the Bullman team in February 2009 and completed her purchase of the business in December 2012. Since then, Anne has showed her courage, her sense of duty, discipline, and of course, huge business acumen and savvy as she's taken the company from strength to strength with clear commitment to her clients, her team of employees, and the local community. Anne's ability to establish a vision for the company and move forward with it has Bullman Products pursuing technology and process improvements that are providing the infrastructure needed to expand their global market. Last but not least, IBT Zone Online Chief Content Officer, Susanna, on the left of your screen. Susanna is responsible for all of our digital media, our multi-channel publications, and brings together and curates a huge wealth of international online research and knowledge that is made available to you on our website. Susanna has spent her career working on international business, living and working in the US, that is over in New York, as well as France, Germany, and the UK. So here we go with the program, just two words on IBT Online. IBT is a private US company and also a European company. IBT stands for International Business and Technology Online. We've been in business since 2002, so that's over 16 years. We've been helping companies succeed, and we're proud of our international trade winning programs. To date, we've worked with over 400 companies, and the Online Global Program has a proven track record with over 1,000 online global programs. And IBT Online understands the challenges of export and faced by companies and state agencies that provide solutions to help them. And we're proud to have developed with MEDC, the Michigan Online Global Program. And before we get started, I do want to say a word of thanks to our Michigan clients. So on the next screen, over 50 Michigan companies. There we go. Look at that screen. Thank you very much indeed to each and every one of those companies. We're proud to work with you to help you internationally and successfully, and we look forward to working with you going forward and extending the success of that program. But this never happens without the participation and help, and has happened indeed because of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation team. Meet your international trade managers. Now, here we have Natalie on the bottom left, as I introduced, and Chris and Jean and David Newhouse and Wei Wei and Brendan and Jacob. To you all, thank you very much indeed. It is because of you the program has been successful. We've been able to deliver for Michigan companies and working closely with the international trade managers. This has been a phenomenal program. So our thanks to you, and our thanks to all of the Michigan companies that we work with, and indeed to those that we will work with going forward. Now it is my pleasure to hand over to Susanna, and Susanna taking the program forward. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, John. It's a real pleasure to be here today to talk about the Online Global Program and to introduce this very innovative part of the social media marketing online program for Michigan. So we're going to get right down to the agenda. We want to have a brief introduction with Natalie particularly about the online program and how the MEDC is helping exporters in the current environment. And then we're going to talk about international websites and why exporters really need them, why we think that they are essential for exporting in the 21st century. Then talk a bit about what is localization and what is social media marketing on a global scale. How do you do that and what do you do there? And then some case studies. I'm going to be joined by Anne Kirkwood Hall from Bullman Products to talk about examples, real concrete examples of how a Michigan exporter has used localized websites and finally to talk briefly about the program and give you some next steps. And as John said, please have, get ready with some questions and add questions to the question box as we go. So I'm going to turn right over to Natalie, if she's there, please, to talk about the Michigan Economic Development Corporation helping Michigan exporters. Natalie?
Thank you so much, Susanna. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Natalie Chimico, Director of International Trade at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Very briefly, I wanted to give you a quick overview of the state's Export Assistance Program. As many of you may be aware, over 95% of the world's consumers are located outside of the United States, which offers a tremendous opportunity for companies to diversify and expand their sales internationally. There are over 13,000 small business exporters within the state of Michigan, accounting for about 89% of Michigan goods exporters in the state. So Michigan designed a program in 2011 to connect Michigan with small businesses with resources and opportunities to increase exports in this ever-expanding global market. The International Trade Program's overall objective is to increase exports of Michigan companies, to increase the number of new exporters, and to increase entry into new markets. So by expanding and accelerating export growth opportunities for existing Michigan companies, it leads to diversification, investment, higher paying jobs, and job creation. Our services are offered to aim to increase awareness of international trade opportunities, provide export education, arrange financial assistance for qualified export development activities, and deliver on-the-ground support in key Michigan export markets. We have a regionally based international trade team, and the international trade managers work with companies to identify their export development objectives and recommend appropriate export programs and resources. So you don't need to memorize all of our services, but please reach out to your international trade managers that are listed in the previous slide to guide you through the available programming and help you be successful internationally. So companies within our program have been tremendously successful. Since 2012, the International Trade Program has helped Michigan companies increase their export sales by over $2.1 billion. And that equates to about 10,200 Michigan jobs created. The International Trade Program serves over 500 Michigan companies, primarily small and medium-sized companies annually through our service offerings. So by helping them reach international markets or helping you reach international markets, we've been able to help you diversify your customer base, providing long-term stability and higher paying jobs. Just a note, in May of last year, the International Trade Program was awarded the President's E Award for Export Service, which is the highest honor any U.S. entity can receive for making a significant contribution to the expansion of U.S. export. So today, we've got many services available, but the service we are here to discuss on this call or on this webinar today is IBT Online. In this expanding global market and digital economy that we live in, it is more and more important for companies to have a strong international web presence. We've worked with IBT for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've worked with numerous companies within the state, helping them localize their websites. Included in our offerings with IBT, we cover a localization project per company per year, and they help companies localize their websites in up to 2 markets. New this year, they'll be talking a little bit more about the social media assistance, and I just wanted to let you know that that assistance is covered through our STEP program. So it is eligible for up to $15,000 reimbursed per year through STEP. So thank you for your time today, and let me know if you have any questions. You can submit it in the box on the webinar.
Thank you very, very much, Natalie. It's Susanna now, taking back about, just going to give you a very broad picture of the international world. What is the digital world that we're actually talking about, and why do we think, and why do we have so many successful exporters use international websites to grow their global brands? So it's worth putting this in context, what we mean by sort of the digital world. At the moment, with about over 7 billion people, 4 billion of them are actively on the internet at all times. So some countries have very high penetration rates of the internet, like the United States and Europe, where 80% of the population has internet access. But an amazing number of also developing countries, markets that you wouldn't even think have very, very high internet penetration rates. This is really because of mobile phones and the use of mobile phones to access the internet wherever you are. This has really led to such an explosion of the internet for all aspects of work and life throughout the world. And what are people doing on the internet? Basically, people are communicating on the internet through social media across the world, using their phones or their computers. So out of the 4 billion people that we said are actively using the internet at any one time, 3 billion of them are on social media at the moment. So that's a pretty big audience to tap into. And it's interesting to see how they use social media across different markets. There's a wide variety of the use of social media platforms being used. Some countries even use social media more than they use like a Google or a search engine for searches. Some countries even use social media for email or the equivalent of email searching. So it's a very widespread phenomenon today, and it is probably the best way we find of using the internet to grow global brands. And I guess summing that up is really this current slide here, where we say, in today's world, it is much more a customer-centric world. And your job in sales and marketing is to try and somehow have some kind of positive influence and sort of raise your hand above the parapet, as it were, and between all these customer-to-customer discussions and customer to partners, customer to competitors, all this multifaceted discussion that you see on the right-hand side of your screen there in that picture. Your job as a sales and marketing person is to try and influence and be part of those discussions, and at least try and influence them in a positive way about your business, so that companies and customers, partners find you and interact with you and think that you're a good thing, that you're a positive, positive brand that they want to interact with. And that really is the key of why we think having localized websites in your local target markets and then using social media will allow exporters to really punch above their weight and get involved in the individual markets and be part of those customer-to-customer centric world that we have today. So if I have to sum it up into sort of 1 or 2 slides, for us, the website localization and the social media marketing allows you to just get found. It allows you to be understood in all these markets, and it allows you to do business in all these markets. So all of this allows you really to grow a global brand. No matter what your size these days, this is no longer just for the very large companies who have used the internet so much. This is now for all kinds of smaller companies and medium-sized companies. The budget is within reach to get found, be understood, and do business internationally using your website and social media marketing. So let's dig down a little bit more into what we mean by website localization and some discussions about some social media marketing and online marketing. One of the best ways I have to try and understand website localization is really to figure out also to remind oneself how search engines work. Now, let's say Google is the major search engine across the world. How do they work? Well, they take the point of view of the person searching. So you want to be found, but they're looking at the point of view from the person searching. So the person searching is sitting wherever they are sitting, and they want to be relevant according to their basis, not necessarily yours. So if you're in Grand Rapids, Michigan, you have one set of priorities. But if you're sitting in Dusseldorf, Germany, you have a different set of priorities. Your Google will be different. Think of it as over 100 different, or nearly 200 different types of Googles. Google France is very different from Google UK. So you need to understand which search engine, how that search engine works. So even if you have the same language, the search engine, for example, of the UK and of the US is different. It's different because Google takes the point of view of the person searching. So it is market specific and client focused. And that's the really important part to remember. And if search engines are that way, then it stands to reason that your websites have to be that way too. If you're not relevant for the searcher in that market, Google will not put you up on the top page. Simple as that. So you've got to make sure that Google thinks and Google sees you as a relevant website in the local market. You need to therefore localize your website. Here's an example of what I mean. But before we get there, John, can we quickly do a quick poll?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Susanna, thank you very much indeed. Please, could I have your attention for poll time? I'm going to launch our first poll. Here we go. I'm launching it right now. And it talks about, well, guess what? Localized websites for your export markets. Today, do you have websites in all your main export markets or in some of them? Are you thinking about the program, or is the answer no? Please let us know what your results are. I can tell you that at the moment, we have 57% are saying that they're thinking about it, 20% are saying no. Hang on, it's moving. So 40% are now saying yes, but only in a few export markets. So 40%, well done. 25% are still thinking about it. It's great to be thinking about it. And the rest are saying no. Well, look, thank you very much indeed. This is the end of our first poll. That was a little horn to close that first poll. I'm going to shut it now and hand back to Susanna. Susanna, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So I wanted to give you an example. If I was to go on to Google in the UK, for example, here on the left, sitting in London, and I do loose ball bearings. I took that example as the thing that I could think of most in terms of just, the most basic manufacturing product, loose ball bearings. And I get all kinds of searches up here. I get Simply Bearings and Tweak Cycles and Bearing Boys, and then I get some eBays and Henderson Bearings. On the right-hand side of my screen is Grand Rapids, United States. This was a few days ago. And I got these results, which are quite different. Same words, same language. It's a different Google. It depends on where you're searching, which market, and what is relevant to you as a searcher, or what Google believes is relevant for you as a searcher. So what does that mean in terms of your websites? It means they're localized. Here's another example of the kind of thing we mean. And this is also gets very important for your social media aspects. If you don't have the right words and right vocabulary, it's possible that you're not actually being found, being recognized, and interacting with the right markets. A client recently came to us and as a client and joined us as a client and said, I've got this social media going on in Brazil, and it just never seems to work. And that's a client that manufactured products for the train industry. And when we looked, he was using the word train as a Portuguese person rather than a Brazil person. In Portugal, train is comboio. In Brazil, it's trem. 2% of people in Portugal are looking for trem, but 95% of people in Brazil are looking for trem. So his social media was just using the wrong words. It just wasn't focused enough to that market. It wasn't specific enough. And that's why the social media also has to have an element of localization. So that's in terms of languages, and that's what's called the optimization of markets. Here's an example of the kind of market share you have across the world for Google. And you can see that Google is very much the dominant player with over 90% market share across Europe, South America, India, even in the US and so on. Overall, 75% market share. But there's some very large markets that do not use Google. The biggest example is in China, where Google has sort of 1% market share. The biggest search engine in China is Baidu. So if you're looking for a Chinese website, you're not even going to be looking about building something up for that's oriented towards Google. You're going to be looking at what's happening for Baidu and their set of rules. So again, your social media and your website has to be localized. What do we mean by localization? Here is our magic formula. We've put out 10 sort of ingredients of what we believe constitute a localized website. You can see that language, fully adapted to local language, is one of the 10 ingredients, but it's by no means the only one. It's also about hosting locally and optimizing, as the examples I gave you, having multilingual navigation, and of course being fully abiding by local regulatory requirements. And that's something you're going to see more and more as this year goes on. So here's some, we know that the very, very large companies are doing this. And these companies have used, these are the classic examples of Apple and Airbnb and Uber, exploded onto the scene and became global brands very, very quickly by using the internet, by using local websites, and most of all by using localized social media in a very fast way and kickstarting it. And our belief, our strong evidence and experience shows us that small to mid-sized companies can use the same ingredients. So on social media, again, we have some dominant players, and for us, the map on the right shows the dominance of Facebook as the #1 social media platform across the world. Again, there are some major exceptions, particularly Russia, Middle East, and China. But with over 3.2 billion people, you've got to choose the right platform and go it the right way. So on Facebook, if I just drill down just very quickly on that, Facebook is a fantastic platform if you're just starting out on social media internationally. Facebook is a great way to do it. Think of it this way: 85% of the users of Facebook are outside the United States. That's very similar to the statistic that Natalie gave you earlier about the number of your clients, the amount of business you could do outside the United States. If you consider that Facebook includes WhatsApp and Instagram and the messenger services, that's about 4 billion people, all some of it double counting, obviously. So Facebook is probably the single platform that you're going to master if you're going to start out on this journey of social media marketing. Before we get into some examples, perhaps we have time for a brief, quick poll, John.
Yes. Poll number 2. Thank you very much indeed, Susanna. Let me launch the second poll. Here we go. Do you market internationally? So please, is it online and social media? Are you attending international trade shows? There's great MEDC programs around that. Is it paid advertisement or through distributors and manufacturer reps and visiting prospective international customers, which is hugely important? Now, let me give you some feedback. It's very interesting here. 50% are saying online and social media, 100% are going to trade shows. Well done. 20% are saying paid advertisement, 60% are going through distributors and manufacturers reps, and 70% are visiting prospective customers internationally. That's really interesting. We're keeping this information. I'm closing the second poll. That's the horn that closes the second poll. So here we go. Thank you for that feedback, and I hand back.
Thank you. Fantastic. Before we get to some examples and some practicals, there's a lot of examples as well on our website. If you want to go back and look at specifically for Michigan, if you go to our Michigan testimonials, you'll see some from Rollright, Peterson Springs, some from Ann with Fulman Products, but other companies as well who just have said, I'm a small mid-cap company. I am building a global brand through website localization and social media marketing, allowing me to generate leads and establish credibility in these local markets. So I want to really now to hand over to Ann, and just that she can give some of her experiences and share some of her insights and challenges that she's seen in terms of website localization. Ann?
Okay, great. Thank you, Susanna, and thank you, John, for that introduction earlier. I will not go through a long history of Bullman products. I'm just going to jump right into a quick timeline of what Bullman Products has done in the area of online advertising, I guess I'll say. When I purchased the company in 2012, I had just heard the year before from a new employee's friend that 1989 had called and they would like their website back. So on top of being difficult to find in the US, we were nearly impossible to find internationally, yet we were still getting people contacting us. So I knew there was interest in international sales and really started to pursue that avenue. And so we went live with a new US website in the spring of 2014. And then in June of 2014, I attended the US Commercial Services seminar called Discover Global Markets, which focused on the European market, and that was in Los Angeles. And I asked a question at one of the seminars about how do I find distributors in Europe and how do they find me? And John Worthington was sitting in front of me and he turned around and handed me his business card and said, I think I can help you. And they did exactly that. So 3 months after we had launched a new US website, we were working with IBT on launching international websites. So after some meetings with them, we decided that for reasons of similarities between the markets of the United Kingdom and Germany and the United States, we decided to go with UK and German websites. And those went live in November of 2014. And just a quick little thing, if you're wondering why you would do this and why you would invest in these international websites, in July of 2015, so about 8 months after we had launched our UK site, my report from IBT that month said that we had 78 visitors, and I remember being very excited about having 78 visitors to my UK website. I thought that was great. Through the work that we have done, which I'll tell you a little bit more about with IBT, in the past 3 years, our April 2018 report notes that we have 827 UK visitors to our website. So that's a huge amount of growth in the amount of traffic we have there. So back to my timeline here a little bit. We started our eShop, so we now sell direct to consumers as well as through about 700 distributors. And we started our eShop in the US in April of 2015, and then in October of 2015, we added UPS iParcel to that website, so we can now ship to 48 different countries with the UPS iParcel, and FedEx has a similar type of program. I'm sure other people probably do as well, but we can ship to 48 countries through them. So you don't have to ship to all 48. You can pick which countries that you want to focus on. Because that program goes through a drop shipment to, we send our products to Indianapolis, we decided to open it up to all 48 countries for ourselves personally, but that's a choice that each company would have to make on that. So then in 2016, we decided to just keep working with IBT and have our monthly meetings and keep tweaking the systems and see what happened. And when I bought the business went through my first year in 2013, we had growth in 2014 in our exports, and then 2015 exports actually fell off, and I think that's pretty common with what happened with the rest of the US. And then in 2016, as we sat and watched to see what kind of growth we were going to have from the investments we had made and just kept tweaking the systems, we had a 23% increase in our exports in 2016, and then we followed it up last year in 2017 with an additional 21% growth. And then in June of 2017, we actually added localized sites for Australia, Singapore, and the UAE to the UK and German sites. And we did the microsites that Natalie had mentioned, and we added those in Chinese and Spanish. And that was through a grant through the MEDC. So, and then this past August, working with IBT, they kept asking me about writing blogs, and I am not a writer. I'm a slow writer, and so they actually took over writing blogs for me in August of 2017. And so they post different articles on social media. And a lot of this has come about because working with them, I have learned that when you post on social media, it's not just about posting ads. It's not about posting that you're having a 20% off sale. It's about building relationships. And it was important for us to build those brand relationships. And because we sell through distributors and do direct sales, if we have a blog that's posted on Facebook about different wedding bouquets for florists. We're targeting florists, brides, and distributors of floral products. And so we're working on building those relationships, not just saying that we're having a sale, and that's a huge part of social media. So that was very helpful that they took over that aspect for us. And then starting in 2018, we have had IBT partners take over the monitoring and reporting of our US Bowman product site and our eShop. So now every month I get reports from them where they show and compare all the different websites that we have going on, and just the amount of information that they give us, and the return on our investment that we can see is just incredible there. So also, as far as Bowman Products as a whole goes, the 5 years that I've owned the business, our sales revenue has increased more than the US GDP each year. So we're having more growth than the US on average. And this is from a company that's 100 years old, and we make the lowest tech product I think that there is out there. So it's a pretty significant growth. And we also probably have about 85% of the US market. So we already dominate the US market. So the only place for us to grow is internationally. So that's part of the reason that I made that choice to move there also. And then they've talked to about localizing the websites. We had this happen a lot. You need to use the correct words, or have IBT use the correct words and do the research for you on whether or not it's called a paper cutter or a paper slicer or a paper dispenser, but different countries use different words to describe your product, and you need to look for what the person who wants to buy your product is searching for, not what you necessarily call it in that country. I think that's about all I have there, but there might be some questions, or if Susanna or John want to pop into with some things we've talked about.
I think that's fantastic. What a great story. What a great timeline and development. And sort of measured return, fantastic return on investment. Thank you so much, Anne, for that. And sure. I'm sure there will be some questions as well coming up. It's just a great example, I think, for Michigan companies to see that you can do things in a very sort of step-by-step way, that you can measure returns from it and build on success, which I think is really important for small to mid-sized companies to make sure that they're doing. So let's talk directly now about the program, the Michigan Online Global Program for Website Localization and also for social media marketing. This whole thing really began with this, website localization, allowing Michigan companies to get those websites out there. But now, okay, you've got the website, now you've got to really use it. You've got to really make sure that it's sort of sweating, as they say, as it's really working full time for you. That's the pleasure of having a website. It's 24/7, it's on. So you're not just leaving it there to do something on its own, you're really engaging it. So quick recap first about the website localization program. Obviously, we have option A. This is probably for someone who's just starting out, or who says, well, I'm just putting my toe in the water on that market, or I'm just beginning in that market, or I'm not really sure about it yet. So I'm going to do this, initial market. These are small websites that we can launch within 3 months. You're up and online, fully localized, with all the right language, with all the right content management systems behind it, the software behind it, and so on. The total cost is only $6,000 to a Michigan company because of the assistance of the MEDC. We've estimated that each website is 6 pages, 1,000 words. That is fully translated. All that cost is included in the price, and that should have enough of a digital footprint to get you a workable, good, strong website within a market. Now, if that's not enough for you, if in fact you need a specific place for a distributor, or a live chat area, or an e-commerce site, or if you say, I can't have that, I need much bigger, I need all these product pages and so on, then we have sort of an option B, which is much more a customized build program for you, and it can really be as big or not as you want. It can include parts of e-commerce. It can include the writing of social media, all those kind of things. And again, the MEDC is there to help and to support with the $6,000 funding going to it. So again, a fully localized website for your top international target market. So those are the two existing program, option A and option B, two existing choices that you have in the website localization programs that stands till now. And that's why we're so excited to say now we've gone one step further with the MEDC. And I believe that this is a first in the United States. So again, a major star for the MEDC in terms of innovation and in terms of really supporting companies. Because for the first time, I believe anywhere in the States, an economic development corporation is assisting companies to talk and be understood and communicate online. So social media marketing. It is a much broader program, less defined in that sense than the option A, but it is still a highly organized process. I'll get onto that in a moment. The point that I want to make on this slide is just to say it is anywhere that you want. There are no holes barred. We can do this with a Baidu, or we can do this on a WeChat. We can do this in all kinds of different social media platforms that are necessary. I highlighted Facebook earlier. It doesn't have to be. But if you're looking for, if you're starting out on this, and in certain markets, the Facebook is going to be the obvious one. We can help you with everything from starting, from planning to the full execution of it. And again, MEDC assistance is up to $15,000 of funds. So a really very generous offer. What do we talk about when we talk about social media marketing? In terms of this process that we've gone through with numerous companies, including Bullman Products, we start off with a very serious plan and building out a plan to optimize the social media accounts and profiles that you have, and most particularly to determine the objectives for the strategy. Determining the objectives are one of the most key points and something that is sometimes neglected. It really should not be. And one of the great things about social media and online work is that you can have several objectives. You can have an overriding objective to build a global brand, and then you can have a short-term objective, say, I've got a trade show showing up. I want my footfall to increase. Trade shows in 6 weeks' time, I want to have a 20% uptick in the number of people on my stand. Let's do that via social media. Then the execution of this plan, coordinating all the marketing strategy, talking with the sales of the marketing shows, seeing what events you are doing, what product launches, and so on, that can be supported all in function of the objectives of the plan. And then finally, optimizing it. Optimizing a plan and optimizing social media is not something that's a one-off. It's done on a very consistent level. And we think it is incredibly important that it is examined minutely every month so that there's a full understanding between the company and the social media platforms and what's going on that we can deliver for you on a monthly basis. This allows you to really, really make sure that you're getting a strong return on the investment. And again, we will help you with learning that as well as implementing it forward. So that is the full program. And we're very happy to discuss all the details with anyone. And as I said, we are extremely proud to be involved in the Michigan Social Media Marketing Program for Michigan exporters, which is a real first in the United States. So what's your next step? Your next step is getting in touch, either with us or probably more significantly with your local MEDC trade manager. You probably know them already. Here on this, you have their email and telephone numbers according to the very different regions where they are, and they all have the paperwork. They can help you fill out and get yourself started on this and make it a very easy process to engage in. With that, I hope that this was a bit of a whirlwind tour of website localization, social media marketing. I hope that we've left enough time for some questions, and I hope that there are some good questions John, are there any questions in the question boxes?
There are questions, multiple questions. Now, I'm not going to be able to, shall we say, handle them all. So please do know that we'll get back to you. First of all, and thank you very much indeed for that presentation. And guess what? There's one here from Chris says, does Bullman Products get their local distributors involved in the local social media? Well, there you go. And as immediate, how does that happen for you?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Chris. Right now, we follow our distributors on social media, and some of them follow us, and so we share their posts, and as well as that happening and them doing that on the other side. And so every time a post is shared or liked, or someone clicks on a backlink in a blog article that's posted on social media, you rank higher with Google. So we support each other in that way, but it's not a formalized program. But that is a great question, and that's something that that I think I should probably look into, and getting our distributors to work on that more. So thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense, Anne. Thank you for that. Natalie, this one, Emily is saying, what is the eligibility criteria in terms of social media marketing? What's the program eligibility, please?
Sure. So if you haven't already, go to our website, michiganbusiness.org/export, and complete our online intake form, or you can just simply reach out to your international trade manager if you've already worked with our program. So really any small business exporter seeking to expand their exports even further can access our program.
Great, good to know. So there we go. And Susanna, a quick one for social media program. Here it says, do we have to have an international website first? That's a great question. Do you?
That's a very good question. In a sense, I mean, theoretically, no, you could just sort of launch it out there, but it is launching something into a void. And you want to actually redirect traffic towards something. And that's where the local website comes in so handy. So if you're going to have social media in a market, where are they going to respond to? What are you going to ask them to do? What's their call to action? So if otherwise you're just having a sort of a stream of conversation and not engaging them with the actual business. So far better in terms of your return investment, and in terms of actually transaction business and doing business and getting leads, is to bounce them back onto and bring them back into a website where then you have when you have a longer term relationship in that. I hope that's sort of clear for you, John, and it's a great question.
I think that is. And we're going to come back to you, please. This one says, how much of the web and social media work does Bullman Products do internally? That's a great question. What's the balance now between what you do in-house and out-house?
That is a great question. I do very little of it now. What we do is when we have a new product to add, or if there's some information that needs to be updated on our US website, we go ahead and do that ourselves. And so any photographs, that type of thing that would need to be updated, we can do in-house. And then we contact IBT and send them the link of what we changed, and they update it on the international sites for it, which kind of has to be done because I only speak English. And we have sites in German, Chinese, Spanish, and English, I think, in all those. So someone else has to handle that aspect for me. And they also do our US SEO now, as well as our international SEO. So they optimize those systems for us. So I really do very, very little of that. And we do not have an internal IT department. So we outsource all things internet. And yeah, so I might spend, other than my meetings with IBT, 30 minutes a week on it.
Wow.
So, and IBT pretty much handles everything else for me. And then we have a meeting once a month that lasts, I don't know, from 30 minutes to an hour. So as far as the online stuff too, the only thing on social media I do is I will share articles from the National Association of Manufacturers or the Wall Street Journal if they're business related, but that's more on the domestic side of the internet or of the social media.
And thank you for that feedback. That sounds very pragmatic, very practical, and I'm glad to hear. And that works, does it? That works for you?
Yes, that works great for me because I do not have the time or the experience. I tried to do a little bit with Google AdWords, and then when a couple of the staff members from IBT got on there, they pointed out, because I don't know about Google AdWords, so I just learned it on my own, and they pointed out I was getting a lot of clicks, but they weren't high quality clicks. So they explained to me how they would go through and optimize the Google AdWords as well to make them higher quality clicks and help generate sales instead of just more clicks.
And thank you for that feedback. That's great. Natalie, can I just bring you back in? There's a good question here, which is all about David saying, are we eligible for the online global, websites? And so is it about the same year? This is a question sort of, what can you do in a year? Or can you do it both in the same year? And what about year on year?
Sure. So for eligibility, you can do both the online website and the social media program at the same time, or one after the other in the same fiscal year. We cover two, the option A or B that Susanna explained, up to 2 markets of website localization, completely covered by MEDC, and then the social media option is going to be funded through STEP. So you also have to consider, if you are using other STEP-funded activities, it adds to your annual eligibility amount of up to $15,000 per year. So that would be $30,000 in expenses for $15,000 reimbursed.
Has to be said, that's a very, very generous program, and as Susanna was saying, across the states where we have some visibility on these, it is a great program, a great helping hand for Michigan companies. Susanna, last quick question. Tony is saying, who creates the content for international markets? I think that's a very good, it kind of loops back to what Anne was talking about. That's a practical question. What about content? It's complicated content.
Content is complicated, and indeed, we really fit in with what the client wants. We can create content, but you know your business best and you know your products best. So, it really depends on what level we're creating content. We would never create content that steps beyond a certain level of where we were comfortable. And for most of our clients, the techier they are, if they have a very high quality sort of, very niche little product in high engineering, we probably wouldn't step there in terms of the functionality of it because we are not engineers ourselves. However, where we do have a good expertise and experience is saying, what are people talking about these days in that field? What are the main subjects of interest? And there we can do some market research as well to sort of lead the discussion and say, there seems to be some real interest about this in that market, or there's an event happening in whichever market is you're looking at, which is pertinent to your business, and you might want to create content on it. So it's very often a sort of a joint effort in terms of content creation. But if the client does not have the time or the ability or the resources to do it, then we are very happy to take that over as a function. We would always review it, however, with the client.
Understood. Look, thank you for that. I'm afraid as we're running over time, I see we are over time, so I will have to close that down. The other questions we'll get back to you individually. It is time for a few closing remarks and just say thank you everyone for participating today. We hope that you have enjoyed this webinar. We hope that you have found this webinar useful, full of practical information, and have a good understanding of the great online services that the MEDC now brings to your business. It really is now the time to say, do contact your MEDC International Trade Manager and begin your Michigan online global journey and achieve those successful export growth, the type that Anne was talking about, 20% year-on-year compound. It is my turn now and my pleasure to say thank you to Anne, thank you to Natalie, and thank you to Susanna. What a great job done in presenting today's program. So I'd like to give you, this is a little bit of applause there. There you go. Thank you, you three. What a great presentation. A great job done. And on behalf of all of the attendees, we want to thank you. We have one last request for you out there in the audience is please, we are going to launch a survey. We would welcome your feedback. Please give us another minute of your time to let us better serve you in the future going forward. So with that, again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to Anne and Natalie and Susanna, and we wish you excellent MEDC online global success internationally. Thank you again.